going to be meeting also. Uh, yeah, yeah, I'm like the nice Tunde is like the other Tunde. So both of us are going to be walking through. Tunde, your video is shooting darkness. We try to shoot the place. Oh, sorry about. Can you? It's okay. Can you see me right now? Yeah, I think so. So I'm going to be focusing mostly on, you know, on some of these topics, and I'll cover a part. Today is also going to cover a part, and we walk through through the topics together. But before we get started, I would like to ask, has anyone and has something changed? Has anyone registered for the exam? You're like, yes, I'm taking the exam. I'm ready. I'm going to prep for it. I'm going to pick a date. I'm going to take it on this date, or you've already taken the exam and you passed it. I would like to know, just for morale, I guess for morale. Would like to know. Yeah, I would like to know. Someone just asked me, are you a CK? Are you a CK? Well, unfortunately, yes, I'm a CK. Unfortunately, yes, I'm a CK. Yes, that's why I'll be sharing my experience also during this process. Yeah. So it's going to get very, very interesting. Do you have anyone from the meeting that's probably like you register for the exam, or you've picked a date? You're like, yes, I'm going to take this. Everything is telling me you're not ready, but I believe I can prep for this and take this and pass it. Is there anyone else? Anyone else in the meeting? Just unmute yourself and just join the conversation. Okay. Okay. So we have my. All right. Okay. Okay. That's good. Okay. Thanks, Mike. All right. So we have like couple of I can still hear echo. Sorry, I can still hear echo for some reason. So we have like couple. Huh? I can hear the echo when I mute myself.
You're on mute. You're on mute. This is good. I want to hear you talk. Still looks like you're on.
All right. So okay, can you hear me now? So oh, all right. So just enough of my talking. So we have phone like we have a couple of people, Mike, we have Tarun, we have a couple of guys who are yet to register for the exam. When I was prepping for the exam, this is how I prep for exam. If I decide that if I don't have a scheduled date, I'm never really serious about the exam. I'm like, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take it. So I would say the best way I'm telling you is to fix a date. Schedule the exam maybe like, hey, 2 months from now. Pick a date. One thing about the exam is you can reschedule, but at least it gives you the sense of I have a goal to eat, and it gives you that motivation. right? So guys, please try to pick a date, and so that we can have more CK in this community, and we can all like celebrate and everything. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. So I'm going to hand over to my co-organizer Sunday, and he's going to walk us through what today is going to be like. Yeah, so Sunday, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Just give me a second. Let me share my screen. All right, can everyone hear me? Nice.
Yes.
My name is Tunde. I co-organize this meetup with the other Tunde, and this is the third series for the Certified Kubernetes Administrator. And I'm really excited. Thank you everyone for coming today. It's exciting seeing you all. I see some familiar faces from the last meetup. I see Steve. Okay, let me see. I think I might have seen Mike before also, and a couple of other people. Thank you for coming. As you can see, I'm really, really excited. Well, to get started, first thing, today we're going to be doing a thought series, and some of the things we'll be looking at today is Certified Kubernetes Administrator, a little bit about myself. We've been through this in the first series and the second series, but for those people who are just joining us for the first time today, so Kubernetes, what is Kubernetes? It's an open source platform for managing and orchestrating containerized applications. Kubernetes is making a lot of trend in the DevOps community right now. It's the most widely used orchestrator for containers in the industry right now. So why are we taking the Certified Kubernetes Administrator? Well, the reasons why we're taking the Certified Kubernetes Administrator is to actually have a way to actually show our credibility. And, some people just take it to just have, to just see, well, how did the exam go? So one thing I like to do is I like to find out before we get into business and doing the demo. I'm sure we have people who are planning on taking this exam, or people who might have taken the exam and had some issues. Please feel free to ask your questions during the presentation, right? Feel free to post your questions in the Slack channel so we can address it, right? There are a lot of people who are certified in Kubernetes, who are certified Kubernetes administrators in this community. And even those who are not, there are also people who have been working with Kubernetes for a while and just haven't taken the exam. So please feel free to ask questions. One thing also, someone in the community actually got certified, and the person is Tunde. The other Tunde got certified recently. And one thing I would like Tunde to talk about is experience taking the exam, since he took it recently. And also, Tunde is going to be joining and doing the demo and some of the things we plan on doing today. Today, we also decided to use a different environment from what we've been using in the past. So in the past, we've used the Minikube environment for our demos. Now, because of some of the things we plan on doing today, we've decided on setting up a cluster on AWS. So today we're using we're running Kubernetes on AWS with kubeadm, and we're running Calico CNI. For those who would know how this environment, who would like to know how this environment was set up, I actually wrote a blog on how to set up the environment. We'll be sharing the link also to the blog. Now, one thing is I would like to pass it back to Tunde to I would still be sharing my screen, but I'd like Tunde to say a little bit more, just because I want to put Tunde on the spot, to say a little bit more about, you know, his experience recently with the CKA.
All right. So, all right. So, all right. So right now, okay. 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 First of all, there's this guy in the same room with me. His name is Tunde. This guy is like looking like right in my face. I think he's the source of the echo. So I need to kick him out of this place because I'm all right. Let me talk about my experience. So I decided to like just go ahead and take the exam, and I took it. And yeah, the first time I didn't pass it the first time. Yes. I didn't pass it the first time, right? I missed it by, I think, was it like 4 points? But one thing about the exam, it gives you a second chance, right? So I was like, well, how bad can it be? Scheduled like 2 days later, and I passed it because because one thing about the exam is that I noticed. Number one thing is your ability to it tests your ability to, it doesn't test your ability to memorize things, it tests your ability to apply what you know, right? The exam is not going to be what is a volume. It's going to be like, hey, you have this situation, do this. You have this situation, do this. That's one thing I realized about the exam. And also, one important thing I realized taking it the second time was prioritization. You have to make priority about question. I've taken the exam before, so therefore I knew the trend of the exam. So the second time I took the exam, one thing I realized was I already have an idea of what the pattern is going to be. So I realized that just like Tunde said, you have to make sure you prioritize question. Towards the end of the exam, they are like heavy hitters, like questions that are solid questions that are going to take you more than enough time. So you have to make sure that those questions, right? Those questions, how do I don't know how to give out this advice because when I met those questions, I took them, and there are some that I passed, there are some that I did not get, although I didn't get to see my results. But you have to prioritize which question you take first. And also, one very, very important thing that will be very helpful in the exam is, in the exam, you'll be able to use a resource, is Kubernetes documentation. I'm going to advise you to be very, very familiar with that documentation. For example, right now, I use Kubernetes at work. So anytime I'm having any kind of issue regarding volume, I can tell you the title of the document that describes volume. I can literally tell you in the head. So being very familiar with that document allows you to know where you need to click to grab what you need to grab. And one thing also, be very, very careful about the context. For those who don't know, there's a concept of context in Kubernetes. Context is a way to, how do I say this, to switch between different environments in the cluster or between clusters, depending on your setup. So you have to be very, very careful. If the exam tells you to be in context A, and you are doing everything you are doing in context B, I'm sorry. If it tells you to create a pod and you are doing that in context B instead of A, you're going to miss the point. And one other thing I'm going to say is, for the CKAD, be very familiar with the CLI. It's going to save you a lot of time, right? So the first time, the mistake I made was that for every question, I try to get it manifest. I know. I know, very, very ridiculous, very, very ridiculous. I try to get manifest because one thing, if they tell you to create a pod or a deployment, you can do that from the CLI, or you can go to the Kubernetes IO and grab the manifest. But being familiar with the CLI allows you to save time, changing between tabs, copying, right? And also, so be very, very familiar with the CLI. And the third thing is, trust me, just set a date to the exam. Just set a date to the exam, because that's the only way for you to take it. You just set a date to the exam. And for those who don't use Kubernetes every day, set like every day 1 hour, right? Just play with the CLI. Just play with the CLI. Create a deployment, create a pod, create a volume, mount a volume, config map. And one part that's going to decide if you are going to pass the exam or not is a node, is the cluster itself. They will tell you to troubleshoot a node. You may know how to configure every resource in Kubernetes, but if you do not have a very good understanding of troubleshooting nodes, I'm sorry, you will be very close. As you notice, you will be very close to passing the exam, but the cluster troubleshooting has like every weight. So you will be very close passing the exam, but you'll be like, oh, I missed it with 4 points. So that's going to be your reaction. So try to get familiar with at least how to some of the basic services that runs on a node. kubectl, how to know that something is going on with your node, which today is going to talk about today. How to create things like, some kind of port that I will talk about today. So that's my experience so far. It's nothing really special, but it's nothing. It's just like I took it once and I took it again, and I'm the CK.
Hey, Tunde, question about one of your
Steve,
tips. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So you were talking about when you took the test, you tried to get the manifest every time. And I'm trying to understand your tip. Was the tip to not try to get and create a manifest, but try to learn how to use the CLI to do the modifications to bring it into spec with the manifest?
So the tip is, right? So there are some cases, for example, if they tell you to create a config map or to mount a volume, in those cases, I'm going to recommend getting a manifest just to be sure, right? Because some people are not comfortable with mounting a volume from CLI. But in a case like a deployment, you can create a deployment right off the bat from the CLI. So having to go to Kubernetes IO to grab those manifests before you page them, and trust me, excuse my language, the control, like copying documents in the Kubernetes environment sucks. Trust me, it sucks. The CLI is like not your normal CLI. It's like a web interface that acts like a CLI, right? So you have to know how to some things don't need to be copied. Like a CLI can just make. For example, if you are trying to set image, right? So that command will be very, very helpful if you are trying to do a rollback. Trying to do that from the YAML file, it's going to eat like a couple of minutes of your time. It will do that. So that's one. Know when to use CLI, know when to use Kubernetes documents. That's it. All right, that's my experience so far. So today is going to.
Alrighty. So yeah, that is Tunde and the latest CKA in the community. Alrighty. So to get down to business, like I said, today we're running on AWS environment, and we've set up a master node. We set up a master node and 2 workers, and we use kubeadm. So let me move this. Nice. Can everyone see this or to increase? Let's see if we can make. There you go. So, can everyone see this?
Yep.
Great. All right. So let's get to business. So first thing I would like to show the, what we have in the cluster right now. So we have a master node and we're running Kubernetes version 1.10 and two other worker nodes. So first thing I want us to do today, I would like us to do today is kind of troubleshoot some of the issues, fix this node. Then from fixing the node, we walk around, some of the things we have planned today. So first thing, if you notice, we have the third node here with the status not ready, right? So in a case like this, like during the exam, if you have a question that that says something is broken in the cluster, and you run kubectl get node, and you realize, well, the cluster is broken. So how do you troubleshoot something like this? First is first, from using kubectl, so try to describe the node, right? And as you can see, we really don't have a lot of information until we get to this point right here. So I might have to reduce this so everyone can see this part. So if you look at this session right here that shows the condition, it shows that the node status is unknown, that kubelet stopped posting status, right? And from here, with what I know about Kubernetes and how that the kubelets actually sends information back to the cluster. So what do I do in this case, right? I find out the IP of the node that is having the issue, and what I would do is I would SSH into that node and go troubleshoot from the node and see the reason why the nodes might be down. So I'm going to leave the master right now and bring the worker node. All right, so this is my worker node. This is one of them, and so let me compare this side by side. Okay, so in this case, we see that is the node with the IP 172.31.95.28, right? So what I've done is I've SSH'd into that right here, and I'm going to expand on that. And so first thing we want to do is we want to check the status of maybe Docker, check the status of the kubelet itself also, right? So the way to go about this, we need to become a privileged user to do this and run systemctl status Docker. And as you can see, Docker is running fine. So definitely Docker is not the issue. So next, let's check the kubelets, right? So what I'm doing is I'm checking actually the parts that are required to actually make the make the workers work with the master. And we know we need Docker to be running because Docker is a container runtime, and you need the kubelet also. So next I'm going to check the kubelet, right? Wow, there you go. As you can see in the kubelet, when we check the status in the kubelet, we see that it's failed. So it's not running right now. So how do we fix this? First thing to do in this case is just run a systemctl restart kubelet.
Not seeing the bottom of your screen, so I think we're a few lines off.
Oh, wait.
Are the rest of you guys seeing the bottom of his commands? The bottom of the terminal?
No, we are not.
Wait.
I can see it clearly.
Okay, let me see if I can. How about now?
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
I can see it, but I think it's cutting off the last few lines, I think.
Oh, right. When you set up a full screen, then it is cutting off last line. Yes.
Yeah.
Now it's good. Yeah. Now I can see it.
Let me minimize and see. So.
Yep.
Does it look better now?
I can see the commands as you're typing them. Yeah. So that, yeah, it's a little bit smaller on the real estate, but thank you.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. No problem at all.
All right. So now I'm going to check the status of kubelet. You know, what I did is, for those who missed what I did, so while it wasn't showing up, so what I did was I checked the status of the kubelet, and I realized that the kubelet was stopped, so it was failing. So all I did was I just ran a systemctl restart kubelet, and I checked the status after a few seconds, and now we can see that it's running. So now to make sure, okay, so I see someone asked, what was the command I used to check the kubelet status? So what I did was I just ran systemctl status kubelet. Let me show you that again. So it is this one highlighted right here. Nice. Well, so now that we've figured out that the kubelet status was down, and we brought it back up. Now let's see if that fixes the issue, right? So I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring back master. So exit out of this. No. There you go. I don't think this works. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure we don't have this previous issue. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run kubectl get mode one more time. Oh, now we can see that we have the 3 nodes running, right? So we have master running, and the one having the issue is back up. So basically, this is what we need. This is some of the things that we need to do, like when we realize that maybe the kubelet is not coming up. One other way we can find out, if a kubelet is down or is not coming up, one thing we can do is we can use the journalctl. So let me simulate that here. So the journal, like if you use this, you can find out a lot more information on what is going on with the kubelet, right? You can see exactly you can get like more information on the steps it takes, you know, how it checks, how Kubernetes checks, you know, the different runtimes as the kubelet is being initialized. So this is another way to tell, you know, if your kubelet, if there's something wrong with it. So let's see.
Hey, Tunde, what OS does the test occur in?
Oh, this one, are you asking what OS am I running Kubernetes on right now?
No, just the test. I understand there's a web browser kind of a CLI, a web browser shell, but what OS are you on top of?
Oh, it's Ubuntu.
Beauty, my favorite.
All right. So right now we've taken care of the node issue. So first thing I want us to look at today is the static ports. So what are static ports? So static ports allows us to be able to schedule a port from one of our nodes. So in our case, we have 2 worker nodes, right? With a static port, you don't have to run a kubectl. So normally, if you wanted to create a port, you run the kubectl run and pass in the name, let's say in our case, Nginx, then the image name, right? But we don't want to do this today. We want a port to actually run on a particular node. And the way to do this is you SSH into that node. So let me bring back the node we were using just now. So this is the node we're using, right? And I'm logging in as I'm using root right now. And one way to figure out where to put the static port is, so we have something called a port manifest file in each worker, right? So now, based on how your Kubernetes cluster is bootstrapped or how the workers are set up, where the port manifest file is located might be different. So the way in the exam environment, you know, let's say you come across this kind of question, the 2 quickest ways to find out where to specify this is, you know, I personally would check the run at PXAUX, then grep for kubelet. And that way I can tell what was used to actually start the kubelet in this case, right? And as you can see in this line, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Great. And as you can see from this line, you can see the flag -- port manifest path. So the port manifest path here in this case is etc Kubernetes manifest. So what we can do is in this etc Kubernetes manifest, we can go ahead and change our directory into that. And inside of this manifest, so if I created a port, let's say if I created a manifest called port.yaml that contained an Nginx port, what it would do and what it would do after we restart Kubernetes is it's going to set up the port in our cluster, but it's only going to be running on this particular node that we are running the port from. So now, first, before I do this, I want to show what we have running in our cluster right now. So kubectl get port. I'm back on master right now. So as you can see right now, we have Nginx deployment pod running. We have a Redis pod running and a pod named web and with the UID. So let me see. Yes, I'm trying to get a pod definition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this pod definition in here, right? And I'm going to take it to the worker node, this one that we have here, and create something called pod.yaml. And name it static. Right. So as you can see, I named it inject static, and by the time we actually create this pod, save this pod and restart the kubelet, we should have an nginx static pod running in our cluster. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then run systemctl restart kubelet. That's what I have. So let's check this. Nice. So one other way to actually check if the pod we specified was created is to do a run a DrPS. So we run a DrPS, and as you can see, 35 seconds ago, we created the nginx static. So this is the way to tell from the node that we are running the pod from that what we actually, the manifest we created was actually executed. Now to go back to our master node, what we will do is, let's go back to the master node. Now we're back to our master node, right? And on our master node, what we want to do right now is run kubectl get pod, and we should find a pod called nginx static. And that's how you create a static pod. And so during the exam, if you come across a question that says, create a pod on a particular that runs only on a particular node, but a static pod using without running the kubectl command, this is the way to go about it. Now, we have other ways to actually assign pods to a particular node. We have something called a node selector that Sunday will be showing very soon. And there is affinity, there is anti-affinity pods. So we can there are a number of ways we can do that. But for exam scenario, if we are asked to create a static pod, that's how you go about it. So I'm going to give a brief segment. So far with fixing the node and also creating a static pod, does anyone have any question? Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
This is Steve. What are some of the other debugging things that you think are common besides kubelet down? We had, in my experience, kubelet down and then both flannel and calico going down and trying to debug those. Are there others?
Okay, so one thing is, if the kubelet is down, if the kubelet, a lot of information comes with the kubelet. Like when you run the journalctl and you check kubelet, it's each line, especially the lines that has the E flag in front of it. So let me run that in here and see if we have any errors right now. Find something. Find an example of. So right now we really do not have any like issue with our kubelet, but if there was an issue, like some of the errors, some of the issues that I've come across that the kubelets, running a journal CTL on a kubelet has helped me solve is, when you're bootstrapping, like for instance, if you're bootstrapping a Kubernetes cluster using kubeadmin, one issue that you can run into is the swap off error. So because if you don't turn off swap or disable swap before running kubeadm, it's going to throw an error. And the reason is because right now Kubernetes does not have a way to handle memory eviction. So if I run free-m, you can see that there's no swapping happening right now. So because Kubernetes does not know how to handle memory eviction, we need to disable swap before running this using kubeadm. So the kubelet actually shows a lot. One other thing that we can check. Now, I'm talking about if you see a status of your node showing not ready. Now, if the node is showing not ready, it's most likely going to be an issue with that node itself, right? It could be maybe the Docker container running, Docker system running on there is no longer running also. So you can check that and see if maybe that's where the issue is coming from. Now, if it was a case whereby the old cluster is not coming up, maybe you run a kubectl get node, and then you get a connection refused. A possible reason to this could be maybe before actually bootstrapping your cluster, something is already running on one of the ports that is required. Like for instance, the API 7 needs port 6443. So if port 6443 so if you run list open files -i and check 6443, you should see that it's me. And so before bootstrapping the cluster and you run this and you realize that it's being used or it's open, you probably might want to kill that process and run your kubeadm all over again, because you need to actually have this available for you to use, for the Kubernetes API to use. Another one is the one for the kube proxy, which is port 10250. So that's something else that that you can check. But for the exam purposes, so the two things that you probably need to look at, if you have an issue with a node, it's definitely going to be either the Docker system CTL status or the kubelet service status. So any other question?
What was that command you typed, the general CTL? What was that about?
So it allows you to get more information on the kubelet. So like, let me run that again. So you just run a man general CTL. So you use it to query the contents of systemd.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to let Tunde take over right now and show some of the other things that we would like to show today.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, all right. So I'm going to be talking about some of the stuff, that you have to like worry about outside like troubleshooting cluster. So the first thing I'm going to address is one of things that needs. Okay. All right. Yeah, I can still hear my echo. Let me share my screen. Okay, let me just share my entire desktop. All right. So now, okay. So in the exam, some of the pattern of the things that you may be asked about is creating volumes. I'm going to advise familiarity with volumes. Now, volumes, if you work with Kubernetes, I mean, you have to store volumes. You have to store something. But you don't, in the exam, they probably won't ask you about, if you're on AWS, like provisioning EBS or EFS, provision, all those kind of stuff. They will ask you about, some of the volumes that most people don't really pay attention to. Now, this is a question. How do you provision a pod that writes data into a file, right, such that that data only lasts for the lifetime of the pod? So your job is to create a pod that runs, but the data that the pod is going to be writing into a file, or whichever data the pod is holding, should only last for the lifetime of the pod, right? So those kind of questions, you should be able to like know that what they want you to do is they want you to deploy a pod with a non-persistent volume. So we have the persistent volume, which is something like EBS volume, some NFS volume, those kind of stuff. So in this case, they don't want those kind of volumes. They just want the volume to last for the lifetime of the pod. So in that case, this is what they want you to do. They want you to create what we call, I call it empty directory volume. So this kind of volume, right, only lasts for the lifetime of the pod. So this volume is created for the pod when it starts running. And once the pod exits, that volume ceases to also exist. So exist rather. So to answer the question, we are going to create a non-persistent volume. Please learn how to do that. And being lazy, my lazy self, I'm just going to let me quickly do something. Sorry, let me quickly. All right, I'm on the no, keep CTL, get board. Now, the first thing you have to do is make sure, make sure you're in the right context, right? So keep CTL, config, right, current context. All right, that's our context. Make sure you're in the right context. Now, actually, let me show you where I got this from. In the exam, what you are going to do is go to kubernetes.io. How do you hide this? Hide myself. Okay, so go to kubernetes.io, which is what you're going to have access to. Like me, I'm talking from the exam perspective. Just type in empty dir. Okay, it's going to show you, right? And okay, then you click on the type. Oh dear, where are you? and you simply copy the manifest. That's it. You simply copy the manifest. And once you have the manifest copied, how do I? Oh, sorry about this. It's like I'm learning this thing all over again. Damn it. Oh, damn. Okay, that solves my problem. All right,
So you're saying that in the exam, we can go to this website and do a copy paste from the.
oh, yes, they
Okay.
give you access to Kubernetes.io. So copy that. I have this copied, right? And I'm simply going to go to the vi powered the YAML and okay. All right, keeps it here. Apply. I said pour the YAML, right? And boom. And keeps it here, get pod test PD. Because I love to verify my my deployment. For some, you can do it, you cannot do it, you may not do it. As you can see, the volume has been mounted and the pod is running. And you can move on to the next question. Yeah, that's it. All right, so that's something I need to watch out for, how to create a non-persistent volume. One other thing that you have to watch out for. Okay, today wants to chip in something. Oh, someone has a question.
I had a question. What's the difference between creating an empty volume and then just writing to the file system without a volume within your container?
So writing without a volume within a container, right? And so you provision a Kubernetes, right? So you provision like how do I say this? A pod without specifying a volume. Most of the time, the empty directory one, it's usually used what we call a sidecar volume. It's mostly, for example, if I'm running a deployment and a pod rather, and I want to be able to communicate. I want to be able to communicate between the two containers. I can create an empty dir, an empty directory kind of volume, and mount it on both container and use that to communicate with them. But if you just launch the pod and those containers do not have a form of a volume, a shared volume that they can communicate through, so I think that's what is being used for in most cases. It's just in the question, there's a question in CKAD. There's a question in CKAD that is going to use empty dir to communicate between a pod and a sidecar pod. So it's the empty dir is used for communicating between two pods, like a shared volume. So, okay, I'm getting that mixed up. Communicating between two containers in a pod. So that container A can write to the file on the empty dir and container B can copy those files. So A can write hello world into the file on the shared dir, and B can just grab that hello world and do whatever it wants to do with it. But if that pod was launched without any kind of volume attached to it, there is no way each of the container are going to be using the file system in the image that was launched. So everything they write, everything they do is going to be local to that image. There is no way for the other container to use that data that the first container is outputting. I don't know if
That is an absolutely perfect use case. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. So I mean, in the exam, in the CKAD, you will get something along that question. All right. So
basically, volumes are being shared among multiple containers.
Yes.
In a pod, and multiple containers can share same files volumes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. It's just for them to share volume and you just process data. All right. So the next question I'm going to talk about, because we have limited time, is all right. Now, host path. So what they want you to do is there's a directory on the host itself. They want you to mount it into a port at a particular directory. So in this case, I just copied this from, and just do the same thing. Just do the same thing. I'm trying not to use example from the documentation. I don't want to come up with like some foreign examples. So just do the same thing. Host path, where are you? Okay, host path, boom, boom. All right, just copy this guy. Then once you copy it, let me remove my.
Sorry, what was the question again?
So the question is for you to mount a volume on the host, right? So we have the host, right? And there's a volume at a particular part. They want you to mount that volume on the port. So you do that using the host path. So let's go ahead and I removed it. Okay, for the YAML. Okay, boom. All right, so I don't want to, let me call this something else. Host paths, whatever. Host paths, okay. kubectl apply for the YAML, and boom, and our port has been created. And you move on to the next question. All right, always verify that you're in the right context. Now, the node selector, right? So we want this particular pod to run on a particular node. So let's call the node stupid node, right? The node is probably going to be labeled already for you, but in this case, I'm going to kubectl get the nodes that we have in the cluster. Good. All right. Okay, I'm going to show labels. Tell the node to show labels. Okay, this is a label. Thank you. All right, now there's this node. Let me see. kubectl label node. Okay, what's the name of our node? Let me call this guy. So the node is called stupid node. Okay, this is going to be already prepared for you. All right. So there's this node labeled stupid node, and oh, I said stupid none. It's going to ask me for overwrites. I think I'm writing this well. All right. It's called stupid node, and we want to make sure this I don't know why I picked that name. This stupid pod runs on that stupid node, right? You use what we call a node selector, and let me copy that, because for this example, just copy one of the example that you've used before. Most of the time, I'm going to advise this. During the exam, have nginx pod manifest. I mean the YAML file. Have it. You are going to have a notepad. Have it down in the notepad, because you are going to be using pod a lot. So if you need to do stuff like this, all you have to do is just copy that nginx pod manifest and do what you need to do. So to solve the problem, we do what we call a node selector. What this is saying is schedule this pod on node with this label. And as we can see, we want to schedule it on this node. So kubectl describe node. That's the node that we want to run this guy on. Right now, these are the ports running on that node. Right. This is the mirror of the static port that was deployed earlier. Yeah, during today's presentation. All right, so let's go ahead and just let me call it, let me make it var kubectl. Let's call these pod2.yaml. Okay, and let's hope this works. If it doesn't work, well. I've actually tried it before. Okay. Okay, so pod 2. Oh, pod 2 has been deployed. All right, all right. kubectl get pod. All right, it's creating. Okay, it's running. Okay, let's describe that node again. Boom. It's been deployed on the stupid node, or what you can do is describe node with label stupid equals node. Yeah. So it's running on that particular node right now. Does anyone have any question? If you have any question, just let me know. So yeah. So during the exam, you may be wondering, where do you get this? Just click on this. Click on this. Assigning pods to node. Bam, 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 boom. Copy this and modify the node selector that they want you to use, and everybody's happy. Yeah. All right. So I think I may have one last thing. If you have any questions, just let me know. Tunde, do you have anything else? Yeah.
I have one.
Okay.
It was about the test, and I'm trying to understand the environment so I can be proficient there and answer questions quickly. Okay. So what I understand is you're going to log in, you're going to browse, open your browser, go to a web page, and you're going to have a CLI to work with. And then each question is going to give you a kube control context, and you switch to that context, and you'll be able to investigate from there.
Exactly.
And then will you be able to have a second window open so that you can shift between the two and look at doc in one window and CLI?
Yeah, I wish that was possible. You can only have two windows open, 2 tabs. One, the Kubernetes documentation, and the other one is going to be the exam prompt. You can have like multiple tabs. I try to do that, and most of the time I've been so unlucky that I end up with these people that monitor me. They're always very angry. They're always like, don't cover your face, stop moving that way, stop looking at the screen. Like, you can only have like 2 tabs open. So yeah,
I think, Steve, a solution to what I think what you might be asking is, is it possible for you to have your doc on one page and also have your terminal on one page, and you can like easily work with it? So your solution to that is, have multiple screens. So the exam allows you to use multiple screens. So you can have 2 screens. So have your HDMI connect to your secondary screen, and then have the dock on one screen, and also the exam terminal on the other screen. That makes your life easier.
Yeah. So what Tunde just told you is a perfect way to actually have 2 screens. But I'm just so uncomfortable with like moving. And first of all, right, my laptop sucks, right? So trying to move between 2 screens is like me being my own nemesis, right? I'm going to be like, oh God. And I'm already pissed at the fact that I have to sit somewhere for 3 hours. So just try to see which one works best for you and pick it. If you are going to operate from a single screen, know that. If you can do multiple screen, know that. Time yourself. Let me mute this person. So time yourself, and okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get a participant. Somebody is not muted. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So just figure out which one works best for you. Right. If the multiple screen works best for you, pick it. If the single screen works best for you, yes, do that. but it's like how do I say this? The most important part is just it's going to be how do I cop know how to use control I think control C and P very well. I mean, I know everybody says they know how to use it, but sometimes when I'm typing, when I'm trying to paste on the CLI, the web interface CLI, I have to click like multiple times. Maybe just my laptop that is horrible, or maybe just like the fact that I'm interacting with Kubernetes from a web interface, stuff like that. All right, so let me move on. The last thing I'm going to talk about is I think today is going to address that if he wants to. Yeah, it's troubleshooting like failed deployment. Yeah, I would like him to address that because we've actually talked about this like multiple times. I would like him to address that. All right, let me stop sharing.
Hi everyone, I'm back again. Well, so one of the things I wanted to go over was I think I lost my terminal. Give me a second. So one of the things I wanted to go over was some of the issues we run into with pods, and creating pods with manifest and being and how to debug you know issues like image pool errors or uh, any kind of image failure. And what do I mean? So for instance, we're trying to run an application like Nginx, the Nginx pod, and then the image that we've specified for the container is not being pulled down. So one thing is most times, we might be trying to create a manifest and we're trying to type in name engine X, and then we make a mistake and type in something like engine and forget to put the part X. Or another thing could be we put in a version for the image that doesn't exist, and then Kubernetes, the application is going to throw a fit. So let me go ahead and keep still get note. Okay. So what I did before now and for today was I set up a different context for this case. So kubectl create use context. And also I have bash completion enabled in my environment, so I get to work easily on my terminal. So I've switched my context to meetup, right? And then it has RBAC. This is set up with RBAC, and so I'm using roles and role binding to determine what the user meetup can do. So if you run kubectl get port, well, as you can see, we have a pod in here called Nginx that is having a status image pull backup. So what's going on here? One thing I like to do is run the kubectl get event and see if there's anything I can get from kubectl get events. So one thing we can see from here is I'm going to expand my screen and run this command one more time. And say yes. So it was trying to pull the image Nginx 1.23, right? And then next thing we noticed is it failed. And who's telling us this? It's the kubelet. It's telling us that this failed and the error is image pull backup. So I noticed it was trying to pull an image, and then the next thing, error. So what do I do right from here? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to describe the resource that I created, which is the Nginx port. So kubectl describe port Nginx. So I've described the port Nginx, and under the event section, I still see the same thing I saw, right? And the reason why, so if you look at the containers, under the containers section right here, it's telling us that the state is waiting, and the reason is because of the image pool backup. Now you look at the image, here, it says Nginx 1.23. Nginx, so in production, in your work environment, one thing you probably want to do is, you probably want to verify. Does this Nginx 1.23, does this exist? One way you can do that is to run a Docker search. So you can run a Docker search and pass in the name, Nginx, and search for it with the 1.23 version, right? And if it exists, then well, the issue is not because Docker cannot find the image. It's a different thing. Then you move on from there. But in this case, I particularly know that 1.23 doesn't exist. And I know that Docker is not having any issue because we're able to pull other images. Now, to solve this, now that we've noticed that Nginx, we're having an image issue. To solve this, all we need to do is just we can either edit the resource by using kubectl edit. Nginx. We can edit the port by changing the image version here and just specifying latest, or just leaving it as just Nginx. Or so I can go ahead and just use this VI editor and just change this and leave this as maybe latest, and then save the file, and that should fix it. That is what I expect. Another way to do this is, or a way I think is faster to do this is just, I'm going to go ahead and not save this. And you can do the kubectl set image for port Nginx and specify the name of the container. In this case is Nginx equals. So I've specified the name of the pod here, right? And now I'm specifying the name of the container that I'm trying to update. So, and just set it equals to Nginx or Nginx latest. And this should fix it. Another solution to this is, say you have multiple containers inside of this pod, inside the deployments, right? And we wanted to fix this. One thing we can do is you can specify asterisk in here, and the asterisk in there means all containers inside of the pod. So you just specify star and Nginx, and see, it says port Nginx image updated. So now we're going to go ahead and run kubectl get port, and there you go. Voila! We see that our we see that our Nginx port is now running. So this is one of the ways to actually figure out fix issues with images. So either running the kubectl command imperatively, or editing the resource, the pod resource, Nginx, and making the change to it. Now, outside of the CK environment, right? So say in production, you have an issue whereby for some reason, all the other nodes, all the other resources you have in your environment, everything is working fine. You're able to pull all the application images into your environment. But for some reason, one application that maybe your developer has built is not working. So how do you troubleshoot something like this? Well, the way to troubleshoot something like this is, first things first, we check, can we pull this image? We've checked the image, right? It keeps on throwing a crash back. Try to do a kubectl log, see what error the application is throwing. Now, if you don't get much out of that, the next thing you want to do is look at a Docker file. Is there something wrong with the Docker file that was used to build the image? Now, if your Docker file is putting in a binary inside of the Docker file, you probably, next thing you want to do is, by the time you realize, well, there's nothing wrong with this Docker file, next thing you want to do is you want to go to the process whereby you're building the Docker, you're building the application that will be inside of your Docker file. So let's say, for instance, you have an application that is being built using Go. So maybe you run a Go build. So one thing is, you probably want to check, how is this application being built? Because if the application is not built right, it's going to throw most likely a crash loopback error whenever you try to start the container. So those are some of the other ways you can look at issues with images. At this point, does anybody have any other questions?
Yeah, can you explain kubectl set image pod nginx star is equal to nginx? Why do we use star?
Okay, so the reason why I was able to use star in this case is, well, I know that there's only one image. So let me run kubectl. Get pod -o. So as you can see, in this pod, we have only one image running, just one, right? The pod named nginx. And the image we were using before had an issue, right? We have just one pod, but in this case, I could have just specified the name nginx, and that would have updated it. But because I'm lazy and I just don't want to type nginx, so I decided to go with star. So it's just like doing a command completion, maybe inside of maybe on the command line terminal, right? And you press, and you type in something like rm-rf star inside of your production repo. Don't do that. And you didn't hear me say that, but, and you type in, or maybe you type in cp star and pass in the destination, what it's going to do is going to copy everything within that repo or within that directory into the destination that you specify. In this case, the star or asterisk is working the same way also. So when you put in the asterisk, it's saying every single container running in there should be updated with that image that I've specified. Now, because I know that we have just one image in this case, it's only going to update the nginx image. Now, if this was a case of maybe multi-containers, or we had another a 2-container pod or 3-container pod, right? And I specified the star. What is going to go ahead is every container inside of that pod or that deployment is now going to be running that image. That could be a catastrophe. So, but in
the scope of this command is only for that pod, right?
Yes, it's only for that pod. Yes.
Okay, not other pods which are running the same nginx container.
Right. So if you notice, this was can you see this command right now? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
So if you notice, I'm specifying that this is the resource I want to update, the pod resource, right? And I'm specifying the name of the resource right here, which is nginx. So this actually isolates what I'm setting to just the nginx pod.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like using wildcard.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. See, that was the word that was eluding me, and I kept on saying asterisk. Thank you. So I hope I was able to answer your question. Any other question? Please feel free to ask a question. Someone else might be able to benefit from it. Um, the fun part of this community is the interaction. You know, it's that I believe in interaction. Interaction is actually the fastest way to learn. So I personally enjoy when questions are asked and you know we get to discuss that. You know, more you know I'm able, most time I'm able to get people's perspective and better ways to actually do things. So please feel free to ask your questions. So um, since there are no questions, one other thing I was planning on looking at today, but I'm afraid that we might we might have run out of time. And I was trying to demo daemon sets. So daemon sets, so I'm just going to talk briefly about it. Daemon sets is kind of a way of specifying a pod that we want to run on all nodes. So say for instance, your company, you have a let me give a, okay, now, yeah, there you go. I have a, I have a use case right now. Say your company has this pod that needs to run on each node in a cluster. Maybe you have 500, 200 nodes, or maybe 100 nodes. And you always want a particular pod to run on that node. So let's say your cluster administrator adds a new node. Automatically, you want a pod to be scheduled on it. We use daemon sets for that case. Now, what are examples of some applications that would probably that you could use the daemon set for? So let's say you have a log collector or maybe something that does metric work for you. You probably want to use a daemon set, right? So a daemon set kind of like works like an agent. So it's like an agent that runs on each node. So it kind of follows that ideology, right? You can have that once your node joins, like, so in the past, I've worked with some applications, like maybe security applications that as soon as a computer is, you know, added to your, maybe to your environment, it automatically installs maybe the security application inside of it, or just a monitoring application or package management application inside of it. This is kind of what daemon set is for. So most people use daemon sets with logging and metrics. You know. So in the next series, I'll be doing a demo on that and also on persistent volume, and you know, and some other things that we think about, or maybe if we have people in the community post some things they would like to see in the next meetup. Also, for the next meetup, we have a couple of really interesting meetups lined up. They're non-CKA, but really interesting topics lined up. I would like to talk more about that. But other than that, one last call. Does anybody have any other question about the CKA?
So do you have any blueprint for the exam pattern? Like what questions, what type of questions?
Well, I think the best blueprint you can get right now is a curriculum.
Oh, okay. Like what is the questions I'm thinking? I'm asking about.
I'm sorry?
What is the questions looks like? So do we need like do answer the question, or we have to perform the lab session?
Okay, so yeah. So most of the questions, like if you look at like at the previous series and up until now, most of the things we address is based off our experience during the exam. So most of the things we are actually doing during this presentation might not necessarily be the way most people would do it in a production environment. But this is from our experience taking the exam. This is some of the things ways we suggest that you should do this. Now, if you notice when I did the kubectl set image not too long ago, I did it imperatively, right? So you could decide to do that in a different way, right? So the challenge to me running kubectl set image, for example, imperatively is that if my cluster administrator checks the YAML file that was used to actually create the engine export, he notices that it still has the version 1.23 inside of it. So say something happens and that port gets deleted, and they recreate that pod with that file, it's still going to have that same error all over again. And now they need to start looking for Tunde to come fix it, because Tunde was the only one that knows that that was the issue. So you probably in a production environment, you probably want to use kubectl apply to actually to update to the file that was used to create the port. Then use kubectl apply to apply the configuration. So we have kubectl apply, kubectl create. So kubectl create and apply, how do they differ? One, so we have something called declarative management and imperative management in Kubernetes. So kubectl create falls into the imperative management, and kubectl apply falls into declarative management. So whatever you do with apply, it's going to run. If it already exists, it's going to update it. Now, if you run a kubectl create file, let's say we have a pod.yaml that we've run a kubectl create on. Once it creates that pod and you run the kubectl create again, even though you haven't made any changes, it's going to throw an error. So I think a simple word to go with is kubectl create doesn't have any way to do any kind of idempotency. Like, when you run kubectl, like most people that use Ansible, if you rerun a playbook, it's going to, and there was no change because of, idempotency is not going to do anything. But now, if it was something, there was a change, it's going to update it. Now, kubectl create can act that way. So I hope that helped. But some of the questions, the way the questions are structured is based on cluster administration. So maybe setting up, from my experience, it's mostly the same thing you see in the curriculum, what we've been doing in here, creating deployments. I think the most important thing to take in this exam, right? From what we've done from the first series till now, I think it's sufficient with a lot of practice on your own end and familiarity with the documentation of where to find pods, where to find, when I mean pods, where to find pod manifest, where to find deployment manifest, service manifest. Those things are very, very key, because the structure of a pod can be built up upon. Same thing with the deployment. You want to map a volume, you probably need to map it inside of a deployment file. So all these things come in handy, knowing exactly where to find it. Familiarity and practice is very, very important for this exam. So if you want to take this exam for the first time and pass it the first time, familiarity and practice. Trust me, it's possible for you to have been using Kubernetes since Kubernetes came out, right? And still fail this exam due to time management, due to maybe not being familiar with the environment, or not understanding, not having an understanding of your expectations. So bash output, bash redirection, all this come in also. So they come into play. So I'm going to stop here, and please, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to post on the Slack channel, and also you can post on the meetup page. Please feel free to do that, please. And I'm going to let Sumi take over.
All right, guys. So just take 1 minute of your time. One thing is we have a meetup coming up, and this one we are coordinating with someone from TopTal. We already posted like information about the meetup. Please try to RSVP. We are looking forward to everybody being there to learn one or two things. He's a very, very experienced guy when it comes to DevOps, right? I'm hoping everybody can be there, learn one or two things about DevOps. And also one important update is we are going to start hosting on-site meetup in a couple of these cities, right? I hope you're excited, right? So we may be coming near you or probably like right beside the house very soon. So you probably see like these two guys right in front of the house. So we will be doing on-site meetup very, very soon, and we are going to be posting the updates to the group. Apart from that, voila. Thank you for coming. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. See you.
Thank you.